Today's lesson is going to be on absolute value transformations, and we are going to deal with parameter changes in A, H, and K. Today we are going to learn about the different parameter changes on an absolute value function. To begin with, the parent function looks like this. It's an absolute value function, and it can be a piecewise function, but we'll get to that a little bit later. It does make a V shape because when x is positive, it goes up like this, but you also know that when we have x right here, that y is positive as well. All right, we're going to do with several transformations. The first one we're going to start with is the m right here. And when m is greater than 1, the absolute value becomes steeper, or it's a vertical stretch. That means the graph is pulled up and down, and it gets much thinner. Now, notice we say the absolute value. If the positive and negative is something we'll deal with in a few minutes, but right now we're looking at just the size of m. So when m is less than 1, the graph becomes flatter. The easiest way to remember this is to think, if I told you you could be 2 feet taller, you would be a lot thinner. But if I told you you were going to be 2 feet shorter, you would be a lot chunkier. Our next transformation is this sign on m. And when m is greater than 0 or positive, nothing happens. It stays the same. But when m is negative, the graph is reflected along the x-axis. In other words, it now opens downward. Our next parameter change is going to be the k. All right, our next recording check is parameter. And give me just a second. Somebody walked in my room. So these are the k values out here. What you need to ask yourself for these is if you are doing something to the y variable. If k is added or subtracted to y, it creates a vertical shift. It moves it up and down. This is very straightforward. It just moves it up and down along the x-axis. All right, our next shift is going to be the h right here. And h is kind of special, so I'm going to put a little star out here. The effect of h on the graph is called a phase or horizontal shift. I will always reserve it as a horizontal. It's easy to remember because horizontal starts with h. When h is greater than 0, the graph shifts to the right. So it looks just like this. What you're actually doing on these is you're subtracting the shift. So that is going to look something like this. You're going to be thinking x minus, and then whatever your h value is right there. So if h is negative, you have a minus negative h, which gives you a plus h. If h is positive, you have minus a positive, which gives you what we just discussed. So if h is negative, the graph shifts to the left. It basically does the opposite of what you're anticipating it doing. All right, let's apply what we've talked about. So we're going to do this equation, y equals negative 3x times the absolute value of x plus 1 minus 2. The parent function is y equals the absolute value of x. The function's name is, it's called an absolute value. You need to know this. There is a reflection. If you notice, this 3 is negative, so that means there is a reflection. There is a vertical stretch by a factor of 3, and that's because our value of m is 3. So it's going to help you to write down these values. So we know that, and I will generally call this MA. So A is 3, H, which is right here with the x, is going to be negative 1. Remember, we do the opposite. And K is negative 2. and it's not writing for me. There we go. Okay. From here, once you know these, it's pretty easy to fill them in. There's a vertical stretch by a factor of 3. That's our A. There is a phase shift of 1 to the left. We did that right here. And there's a vertical shift of 2 down. Now, to do these, we're going to go in the order of operations. So that's really important. Do the reflection first, and then the other two. So let's move this graph over here, and I keep writing on it. My apologies. Let me shift the graph. Hold on just a second. Okay, got the graph back center now. Software's not cooperating. So the first thing we want to do is our reflection. So this opens to the top, and we're going to reflect it over the x-axis. So that's going to look like this. So we just reflected it. The next thing we want to do is find our vertex, and our vertex, this is a good one to know, it will be the point H, K. So that means our vertex is the point H, we said, was -1, and K is 3. So our vertex is going to be the point -1, 3, which is right about here. And then our graph's going to go down. Or think about it this way. We're going to go 1 unit to the left, 3 units down. So the graph happens right there. We will do more examples at class. Be sure you write down any notes and questions you may have, and I will answer them tomorrow. Have a good night.